You know that feeling, right? That buzz when you're planning something big, like a trip or even a move. Maybe it's Portugal, you're dreaming of the sun, the food, the castles.
Oh yeah, that initial excitement is amazing.
Totally. But then the practical stuff creeps in. What if this happens? Or that? Am I covered?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today.
We're tackling travel insurance for Portugal. Not the most glamorous topic, maybe, but honestly, it's like your safety net. Super important whether you're just visiting, moving there full time, or even traveling from Portugal later on.
Absolutely. And the sources we've looked at, they're pretty comprehensive. Think of them as a guide to Seguro de Viagem, as they call it.
Seguro de Viagem. Okay.
Yeah. So our mission today is basically to pull out the key stuff you really need to know, help you understand why it matters, from getting that visa sorted right through to protecting Portuguese residents when they travel abroad.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The visa part. This sounds like a big one. If you need a Schengen visa for Portugal, travel insurance isn't just nice to have, is it?
Nope, not at all. It's a mandatory requirement, an absolute must-have. No insurance, potentially no visa.
Wow. Okay, so what are the absolute non-negotiables for that visa insurance?
Right, there are specific criteria. It's got to meet these points. First, minimum coverage at least 30,000 for medical expenses. That's the floor.
30,000 euros. Okay.
Second, it needs to be valid in all Schengen countries, not just Portugal. Lets you move around freely.
Makes sense.
Third, duration. It must cover the entire time you plan to be there. No gaps.
The whole trip. Got it.
Fourth, scope. It has to explicitly cover emergency medical treatment and, this is critical, repatriation, getting you home if needed.
Repatriation. We'll probably come back to that.
They will. And finally, the excess or deductible. 0 or very low is what they prefer, so you're covered from the start.
Okay, crystal clear. So who actually offers this? Are there well-known international names people can trust for Schengen visas?
Yeah, definitely. Our sources point to providers like AXA Schengen, Alliance Travel, Europe Assistance, Mondial Care, MGEN International. They're widely accepted. They know the drill.
And what about local Portuguese companies? Do they offer compliant policies too?
They do. You've got options like Fidelidade, Tranquilidade, Victoria Seguros, and Aegeus. So yeah, local choices are there too, which can be handy sometimes.
Right. So moving beyond just ticking that visa box, travel insurance isn't all the same, is it? What are the sort of main levels of cover? Let's start with the basics.
Good point. It's definitely not one size fits all. So basic medical travel insurance, that's your foundation. It covers the absolute essentials if you get sick or injured abroad.
Like hospital bills.
Exactly. Emergency medical treatment, hospital stays, maybe surgery if needed. Usually includes emergency dental work too, up to a certain limit.
Okay.
But here's a really key bit. It covers medical evacuation or repatriation, getting you flown home if it's medically necessary, and even repatriation of remains, unfortunately.
Wow, okay. That evacuation part sounds expensive if you don't have cover.
Hugely expensive. Think 6 figures sometimes for an air ambulance. So that basic cover is crucial protection against that kind of catastrophic cost.
What are the typical limits for that basic stuff?
Well, medical expenses often range from that 30,000 minimum up to maybe €1,000,000. Dental is usually lower, like 500 to 1,000. And medical transport, like evacuation, usually covers the actual costs.
Right, so that's the baseline.
Right.
But then you hear about comprehensive travel insurance. What extra stuff does that typically give you? What makes it worth the extra cost?
Comprehensive is where you get that broader peace of mind. It layers on protection for things beyond just medical emergencies.
Like what? Lost bags?
Exactly. Trip cancellation or interruption, that's a big one. Imagine losing all your flight and hotel money because you had to cancel last minute. Comprehensive can cover that.
Yeah, that'd be painful.
And yes, baggage loss or delay, flight delays, missed connections, things that can really mess up a trip. Plus, often things like personal liability cover if you accidentally injure someone or damage property, and legal assistance.
Okay, that sounds much more, well, comprehensive.
It is. And another really valuable feature is the 24/7 emergency assistance, usually a helpline you can call anytime, anywhere. Lost passport, need a doctor who speaks English, they help sort it out. That can be a lifesaver.
I can imagine. So what if you're doing something specific, not just sightseeing, like, say, you're planning on hitting the slopes or diving, or maybe traveling for work?
Good question. Standard policies might not cover everything, so you often need specialized coverage options.
Like an add-on.
Sort of, yeah, or a specific policy type. For adventure sports, skiing, snowboarding, scuba diving, serious hiking, that kind of thing, you'll likely need an adventure sports writer. Standard policies often exclude hazardous activities.
Right, makes sense. And for business travel?
Yeah, there are specific business travel editions too. Things like covering your work equipment, protecting business samples, maybe cancellation cover if a conference gets called off, even specific laptop or device insurance. It's about matching the cover to your specific risks.
Okay, let's talk money. The cost. Always top of mind. How much are we talking for these different types of policies? It must vary a lot.
It really does. Depends on duration, level of cover, where you're going, your age, lots of factors.
Uh,
But to give you a rough idea based on our sources, for single trip insurance just covering Europe,
okay, say for a week.
for 1 week, you might be looking at maybe 15 to 25 euro for basic medical. For comprehensive, maybe 30 to 50 euro, and premium could be 60 to 100 euro.
And for longer, like a month.
For a month, those numbers go up, maybe 40, 60 for basic, 70, 100 for comprehensive, and 120, 200 for premium.
And 3 months, just to get a feel for the scaling.
For 3 months, you could be looking at roughly 80, 120 basic, 150, 250 comprehensive, and maybe 300, 500 for premium. These are just ballpark figures, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Gives good sense, though. But what if you travel a lot? Like several short trips a year. Buying single policies each time sounds like a hassle and maybe expensive.
Exactly. That's where annual multi-trip policies come in. They're brilliant for frequent travelers.
How do they work?
You pay one annual premium, and it covers you for unlimited trips throughout the year. Each trip usually has a maximum duration, though often 30, 45, or maybe 60 days per trip.
And cost-wise, compared to single trips.
Generally much better value if you take, say, 2 or 3 trips or more. Costs might range from $150 to $400 per year, depending on the cover level and region. You can get Europe-only or worldwide options. Family plans are often available too, which saves even more.
Okay, that sounds like a good deal for regulars. What about the opposite end? People going for a long time, like digital nomads, gap years.
Yeah, for those extended stays, you need long-term travel insurance. Standard annual policies won't cut it because of the trip duration limits. These policies are specifically designed for nomads, gap years, sometimes expats. You often pay monthly, maybe somewhere between 50 euro and 150 euros per month. And crucially, they're usually renewable, so you can maintain cover for, months or even years.
Okay, very different needs there.
Yeah.
Now let's flip this around. Let's talk about Portuguese residents traveling out of Portugal. Lots of people will have the EHE, the European Health Insurance Card. Sounds great, right? Free healthcare across Europe.
It is great. The EHE, or Cartão Europeu de Seguro de Doença, is a really valuable thing for Portuguese residents. It's free, easy to get, usually valid for 3 years.
What does it actually cover?
It gives you access to public health care in other EU and EEA countries, plus Switzerland and sometimes the UK, on the same basis as a local resident. So for emergency treatment or necessary care during your trip, you get it via the SNS portal or a Social Security office.
Okay, sounds pretty comprehensive. So
Yeah.
why would a Portuguese resident traveling in Europe need anything else? What's the catch?
There's the crucial point. It is valuable, but it's not the same as travel insurance. There are some really significant EHIC limitations.
Like what?
Well, first, it only covers public health care. If you want or need private treatment, maybe for faster access or a specific doctor, the EHICs won't cover it.
Okay, that's a big one. What else?
Remember repatriation,
Yeah.
getting flown home if you're seriously ill. EHIC does not cover repatriation costs at all. That could leave you with a massive bill.
Wow. Okay, so no medical transport home?
None. And it doesn't cover things like trip cancellation, lost luggage, delays, none of the non-medical stuff. And of course, it's only valid in the EEA and associated countries. Doesn't help you anywhere else in the world.
So hang on. If I'm Portuguese, I go to Spain, have my EHIC, get seriously ill, and need an air ambulance back to Lisbon, the EHE won't pay for that flight.
Correct. That cost would be entirely on you. That's probably the single biggest gap people need to understand. It covers treatment there, but not getting you back if things are really bad.
That's a pretty major limitation. So for Portuguese residents, even traveling within Europe, supplementing EHIC with actual travel insurance sounds pretty important then.
It really is, for several reasons. You get access to private health care if needed. You get that absolutely crucial repatriation cover. You get protection for cancellation, baggage, delays.
And obviously, if you travel outside Europe, it's essential.
Absolutely essential outside the EEA. Plus, it can cover specific risks like injuries from adventure sports, which the EHIC definitely doesn't touch. So yeah, supplementing is highly recommended for comprehensive protection.
Okay, let's get into the weeds a bit. The policy terms, the fine print. What are some key details people need to pay close attention to, especially with medical cover?
Right, the details matter. Pre-existing medical conditions are a huge one. Generally, they're excluded unless you declare them fully when you buy the policy.
And even then, they might charge extra.
Often, yes. You'll likely pay a higher premium. Some stable, well-managed conditions might be covered by some insurers, but you must check and get confirmation. Never assume. This is where many claims run into trouble. Disclosure is key.
What about age?
Age significantly impacts the premium, especially for medical cover. There are usually standard rates for, say, 18 to 65, then senior rates for maybe 65 to 75, often with higher premiums or lower limits. Over 75, options can become more limited and expensive. Good news is children are often covered free on a parent's policy.
And where you're going, you mentioned Europe versus worldwide. How does that break down?
Yeah, geographic coverage is important. Europe-only policies typically cover Schengen. Maybe the UK, though, always check post-Brexit specific. Sometimes nearby countries like Turkey or Morocco. Russia is usually excluded. These are generally cheaper.
And worldwide?
Worldwide coverage often has a crucial distinction,
Oh, what?
excluding U.S. and Canada or including U.S. and Canada. Including North America significantly bumps up the premium because healthcare costs there are astronomical.
Right, I've heard that.
So if you're not going to the U.S. or Canada, make sure you get a worldwide excluding policy to save money. These policies usually cover Asia Pacific, South America, Africa, etc., and often have higher overall medical limits.
Okay, and what about excesses or deductibles? How do they work?
The excess is the first part of the claim that you pay yourself. So if you have a €100 excess on baggage and your claim is 500, the insurer pays €400.
Right. Does it very much?
Yes. For medical claims, a zero excess is quite common or preferred, especially for Schengen visas. For baggage, maybe €50 is typical. For cancellation, it might be 50, 100, or sometimes a percentage, like 10, 20% of the claim value.
And is that per claim or per trip? Does that matter?
It matters hugely. Check if the excess applies per claim or per incident, or if it's just one excess per person per trip, regardless of how many claims you make. Per claim can add up quickly if multiple things go wrong. It definitely affects the premium too. Lower excess usually means higher premium and vice versa.
Okay, good to know. Now, the elephant in the room for the last few years, COVID-19. How does that fit into travel insurance these days?
Yeah, it's definitely still relevant. The good news is most insurers have adapted and now include COVID-19 provisions.
So what's typically covered now?
Generally, you'll find cover for medical treatment if you catch COVID while traveling. Also, often costs for mandatory quarantine accommodation if you test positive and have to isolate. Trip cancellation might be covered if you test positive before you go, maybe cover for missing your departure if you're stuck isolating, and emergency repatriation related to COVID.
That sounds pretty good. What's typically not covered?
Exclusions are still important. Things like choosing not to travel because you're worried, fear of travel, cancellations due to general lockdowns rather than your own infection. Travel against official government advice is usually a no-no. Pandemic-related business failures, like an airline going bust. And some policies might still have overarching pandemic exclusion clauses for certain things, so you have to read carefully.
So if you want to be really sure about COVID cover, what specific questions should you ask the insurer?
Definitely ask. Is COVID-19 medical treatment fully covered? What about quarantine hotel costs? Are they covered? And up to what limit? Is cancellation covered if I test positive before the trip? Are there any general pandemic exclusions still active on this policy? And what specific documents do I need if I have to make a COVID-related claim? Get clarity on those points.
Okay, really practical advice. So I'm convinced I need it. Where do I actually go to buy travel insurance? And when's the best time?
You've got a few main options for where to buy. Online direct providers are super popular. Quick quotes, easy comparison, competitive prices, instant documents, very convenient.
Like comparison sites.
Yeah, or going direct to insurers like AXA, Allianz, World Nomad, Safety Wing, those kinds of players. Then you have Portuguese insurance companies, Fidelidade, Tranquilidade, etc. They offer local language support, might integrate with your other insurance, sometimes have bank partnerships, and physical branches if you like face-to-face.
Any others?
Yes, international specialists. Companies that focus on expats or long-term travelers. They often have multi-language support, products designed for nomads, strong global assistance networks, might be more flexible for longer trips.
Okay. And timing your purchase, when should you do it?
Crucial question. For visa applications, as we said, buy it before your appointment, make sure the dates are right, print it out, keep proof of payment, check embassy specific.
And for regular trips, say from Portugal?
For trips from Portugal, the best advice is usually Buy it when you book your trip or very soon after.
Always so early.
Because the cancellation cover often starts from the moment you buy the policy. If something unexpected happens weeks before you're due to leave, you get ill, family emergency, and you have to cancel, you're covered for those non-refundable costs only if you already bought the insurance. Medical cover usually starts when you depart, but cancellation starts immediately.
Ah, that's a really key point. Buy early for cancellation cover.
Exactly. Some benefits might have short waiting periods too. And if you get an annual policy, just remember to check the renewal date so you don't have gaps in cover.
Okay, so let's imagine the worst happens. You're abroad, there's a medical emergency. What's the procedure? Who do you call first?
Right, emergency procedures. First and foremost, get treatment. Your health is the priority. Go to the nearest appropriate hospital or clinic.
Okay, then what?
Then, as soon as you practically can, contact your insurer's 247 emergency assistance line. They'll have a number on your policy documents, ideally within 24 to 48 hours.
Why contact them so quickly?
They can provide advice, liaise with the hospital, potentially guarantee payment to avoid you paying up front and guide you on the next steps. They might even direct you to preferred facilities within their network.
And keep everything.
Absolutely. Keep all documentation, medical reports, bills, receipts, everything. Follow the insurer's guidance. They'll tell you whether you need to pay and claim back later or if they can arrange direct billing.
Okay, and the paperwork for making a claim later. What do they usually need?
Yeah, the documentation requirements. You'll definitely need your policy number and details, original medical reports stating the diagnosis, itemized bills, ideally in euros or clearly showing currency, proof you were actually traveling tickets, boarding passes. If it's theft, you'll need a police report, and original receipts for any expenses you paid.
Sounds like keeping good records is vital.
It really is. Makes the claims process much smoother.
And how long does that process usually take? The claim timelines?
Well, you need to notify them quickly, as we said, maybe 48 hours for medical. Then you usually have a set period, often around 30 days, to submit all the paperwork. Once they have everything, processing typically takes 2 to 4 weeks. Then payment follows if the claim is approved.
And if it's denied?
There's usually an appeals process. You can ask them to review the decision, provide more information, so it's not always the final word.
Good to know. Now, what about the things that often trip people up? The common exclusions? What isn't usually covered?
Yeah, knowing exclusions is just as important as knowing inclusions. For medical exclusions, besides pre-existing conditions we already discussed, things like routine checkups or preventative care aren't covered. Cosmetic surgery, experimental treatments. Mental health cover can sometimes be limited, and pregnancy is often excluded unless it's unexpected complications.
Okay. What about activities?
Activity exclusions are common. Things like playing professional sports, participating in extreme or hazardous activities unless you have specific cover, manual labor jobs, racing, anything illegal, obviously.
Just general stuff.
Yeah, general exclusions often include things like incidents related to war or terrorism, though some policies do offer terrorism cover now, nuclear incidents, intentional self-harm, committing a criminal act, incidents heavily involving alcohol or drug abuse, and again, undeclared high-risk activities. Always read that section carefully.
Right. One last area, my credit card. Lots of cards say they have travel insurance if you book with them. Is it good enough?
Credit card travel insurance. It's a common question. Yes, many Portuguese credit cards, especially premium ones like Gold or Platinum Visa MasterCard or Amex, do offer some travel insurance benefits.
Like what, typically?
It might include things like travel accident cover,
Yeah.
usually for death or serious injury while traveling on public transport booked with the card, maybe some lost baggage protection, flight delay compensation, sometimes a waiver for car rental insurance excess, purchase protection for things bought abroad.
Sounds okay. So what are the limitations?
There are usually significant limitations. First, it often only applies if you paid for the entire trip or a large portion of it with that specific card. Second, the coverage limits are generally much lower than standalone policies, especially for medical. Third, medical cover itself might be very basic or non-existent. Claim requirements can be strict, and they often exclude pre-existing conditions, just like regular policies.
So the bottom line on credit card insurance.
It can be a nice bonus, but rarely a replacement for comprehensive travel insurance, especially for medical cover or repatriation. Always verify the exact coverage, limits, activation requirements, and exclusions with your bank before you rely on it. Don't just assume.
Okay, that's super clear. So we've covered a huge amount. How does someone actually pull all this together and choose the right policy for them?
Right. Choosing the right policy. If you're a visa applicant, it's straightforward. Check the embassy's exact requirements. Buy a policy that meets every single one coverage amount. Schengen validity, repatriation, zero excess. Get the documents in the right language. Keep copies. Simple as that.
And for residents traveling from Portugal.
It's more about assessing your own needs. How often do you travel? Single versus annual policy. Where are you going? Europe versus worldwide, including excluding US Canada. What will you be doing? Standard sightseeing versus adventure sports? What cover do you already have? EHIC, credit card, check the limits. Then compare policies not just on price, but on benefits, limits, and excesses. Find the best value for your specific situation.
Makes sense. And finally, everyone wants to save a bit of cash. Any money-saving tips that don't involve skimping on essential cover?
Definitely. First, if you travel even twice a year, check if an annual policy is cheaper than 2 single trips. It often is.
Good tip.
Look for family policies if traveling with kids. Children are often included free or at a reduced rate. You can adjust your excess. A higher excess lowers the premium, but make sure you're comfortable paying that amount if you claim.
Right. Balancing risk and cost.
Exactly. Stick to Europe-only cover if you're not going further afield. Ask about group discounts if traveling with a large family or friends. Sometimes insurers offer early booking discounts. And generally, buying online direct can be cheaper than using an agent or broker because there's no commission.
Great practical tips there. Well, this has been incredibly informative. It might seem like a lot to take in, but understanding travel insurance really does feel like a crucial investment in, well, peace of mind when you're out exploring.
That really is the heart of it. Whether you're sorting out that visa for Portugal, planning your next holiday from here, or even having family come visit you, having the right insurance just means you're properly protected, takes a weight off your shoulders.
Absolutely. In a world that pushes us to explore, getting your head around this often overlooked shield, this travel insurance, means you can travel with real freedom, real confidence. So the question for you listening is, what adventure will you secure next?